Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Virtual Equity. This is episode 5. It is the last episode in our little mini series called Discover Your Love for Recruiting. And today's episode, we are going to talk about the 5 traits to be a strong recruiter. My name is Lindsay,
And I'm Nicole.
and we will get started. So last time we talked about questions we asked to rule out like who's a great recruiter and who's not during interviews. But this time we're going to talk about 5 traits that you really need to be a strong recruiter. We did not talk about what we wrote. So Nicole, do you want to go first? This time I was not superficial, just so everybody isn't aware. Like that's just the superficial questions I ask. But Nicole, why don't you go with your first one? I have a feeling we're gonna overlap a lot on this, but we'll
You
see.
think so? Okay.
I think so.
I think it's always fun because I'm always like, we're gonna say the same things and we end up saying
Totally.
totally different things, but they end up leading to be the same thing. So we're usually pretty in tune. So my first one, not in order of importance, but I have tenacity. I think in order for you to be a recruiter, I'm seeing your face right now. Um, I think you need someone who is able to be persistent, who's able to stay motivated. Um, so yeah.
That is, I have that on my list, and not in any particular order either, but tenacity is definitely something you have to have. Even as managers, the tenacity of our team can drive us crazy sometimes, but we are both very aware like that matters. And we think if we can practice selling it to our team, and then we tell our team you have to practice selling it to other people. But yeah, tenacity and not giving up and never taking no. They're so funny when they're like, then can we try this? And can we do this? And what about that? And it's just like, stop asking me questions. But it's important. It's so important to have tenacity. So I agree.
I think when I talk to the team a lot of times, I tell them like channel like a 3-year-old mentality. It's like you're selfish, you're stubborn, you want what you want, and you negotiate until you get it. And having a 3-year-old, I can tell you they're very persistent. So I always kind of think about that. And I'm like, you know what? To be a recruiter, you kind of have to be a 3-year-old about it, to make sure, we can reach the goals that we set.
That is definitely true. What's the second one?
I put down having a sales mentality. I think as a recruiter, you deal a lot with objections. Um, you have to be able to persuade people and be able to understand them and talk to them, influence them. So I definitely think, and I'm not talking like old car salesman, like, sales tactics. I'm talking about kind of our new age tactics, our new age sales mentality. Um, and I think that kind of leads into one of my third, but I'll let you go first.
So I kind of broke what you were talking about down into 2 different qualities in my head. It's kind of like three, but so the first one is integrity. So nowadays, to be able to sell, you have to have integrity when you're doing it, right? Like you don't have to, but like for me, that's the kind of salesperson I like. And that's the kind of salesperson I am. Like I'm going to sell you with the knowledge of I have a solution to a problem that you have. And we talk about it a lot. Like you have to understand why you're selling and what you're selling to be able to solve the problem, right? And all that to me comes down to integrity. I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes we can be vague about things as we talk to people, right? But in our minds, we're still holding on to like, it's because I'm trying to figure out what kind of solution I can give you and how I can get you to that solution. Versus like just that, like you said, that old like salesy car salesman person mentality that used to be part of it. I think you have to come from integrity and knowing their why, your why, and how you both can meet in the middle, right? And learning to persuade them and things like that. But along with that, you hear like a lot of objections, right? A lot of no's. And at first I wrote down like you have to have confidence. And I'm like, that's not 100% true. You do have to have confidence, but you can waver in your confidence, but you have to have the skills to move past the negativity. So like even when perfect example, when I started, like, all right, I need to figure out how to sell something, I started with direct sales. And that was uncomfortable AF. The things that people said to me and like belittled me and made me feel so small, even things like my husband and my friends being like, oh, the pyramid scheme and blah. And I had to listen to it. And then I had to not let it break me and continue holding my head up high and be like, I understand why I am doing this. I don't need them to understand what I'm trying to accomplish. I know what I need to do. I know how I'm going to get there. I know what I'm practicing, what skills I'm learning. And so I had to feel confident in myself, even though it did shake my confidence. So it's not like I was always confident in what I was doing, but I had to move past that negativity and be like, all right, this is what I know I want to do. But that actually doesn't like explain it all. This is where that like third piece comes into play. You have to be able to get through limiting beliefs. Like, I feel like you can't be confident, you can't learn to get past negativity without learning to get past limiting beliefs. And one of my biggest mantras that I personally have been doing is not I can't, but how can I? What can I do to get there? How can I work this to my advantage or to the result that I need to work it through? And so to me, it's like you got to do that with integrity. You have to be able to find and break through your limiting beliefs so that you can feel confident about what you're doing so that you can push past the negativity because it will shake your confidence. It always will, right? Like when people what gets to you is usually what you're already thinking negatively about, right? And then it just like reinforces it. And so you have to like be able to accept it, recognize it, and like move past it, especially when you hear no all the time. So to me, like if you can't do that, you need to work on that. Like that would be the core foundation that I would say you need to be able to work on to be able to be a good salesperson. Otherwise, the minute somebody says no, you're going to throw your hands up in the air and run scared. You're going to be like, I don't want to do this anymore because it's hard. Rejection is hard.
I think rejection is hard, and I think especially, I think it's true, like, what's said, I don't think anyone's more critical of you than you are yourself. So a lot of times when I'm talking to people, right, like it's hard picking up the phone and talking to someone you've never I mean, I think if you talk to a lot of salespeople, like or someone, in a sales role, they're going to tell you that they hate cold calling. They hate like the thought of just because no one wants to come off as that creepy person on the other side, they're like, hey. So it's like, I always try and talk to, uh, full disclosure, I'm super jaded. I hate like the sales tactics when people come and sometimes I will, even if I want something like, and I'm like, oh yeah, I really like this. I will decline like buying just out of principle because I'm like, I didn't like your sales tactics. And it's like, I'll go buy it somewhere else. Um, so I always kind of like when I'm making the phone calls, when I'm talking to someone, it's like, how would I talk to someone I care about? Right? Like, how would I sell someone I care about? And like, you said it, like your husband, like a lot of times, like your partner, your sister, your brothers, like they're going to be like the first ones to shut you down. So it's like, how do you talk to them? How would you pitch something to them? And it's like a lot of times you can work out those objections like in your head because like what the sucker is gonna say. They're gonna be like, no, and you're gonna be like, hey, I got something else for you, right? So I think that plays into the confidence piece. And I do think that in this case too, knowledge is power. You have to know your product. And your product might not be a book or you might not be selling whatever, something tangible, but you have to know what it is you're selling, why you're selling. Like for us in recruiting, like you want those hospitals, those clinics, wherever it's like you want them to have great talent so we can service our community and we can service people that need the healthcare. And so like I believe in that. Or you could be, you're recruiting for somebody in a manufacturing facility. It's like that it's needed. That it's and when you're recruiting, it's like your product is a person, right? So it's like I feel like you have to kind of like people when you're recruiting. And I think having knowledge of that, being able to talk to people, building up that confidence, breaking down those limiting beliefs, I think really will help you get better at it because you're constantly practicing something. So yeah, I think for me, I think also ties into the third one, which is the emotional intelligence piece. I think we hear a lot about emotional intelligence, and I think for it is so important to know not just when to push, but when to pull back, right? Being able to read between the lines. And I think a lot of times we talk to our team about you have to pick up the phone, you have to be able to talk to people, because I think right now a lot of us rely on text messaging or automation or things, but I rely heavily on facial expressions to, to like see like, am I truly coming across the way I want to? It's like you can see someone's like shift in their eyes, like someone's shift in their posture. It's so telling as to like, is this really getting through to them, or are they just like completely shut down? And I think that tone that you get on a phone, especially, is really, really telling as to where this conversation is going. You can listen for the hesitation, and you need to be able to listen to that and understand, okay, I need to push a little bit more. I need to pull back. I need to change strategies in terms of like how to pitch this to them. And how can I share the knowledge that I have to make them understand that, hey, I truly think this is the best option for you. So that was my third one, emotional intelligence.
It's funny because as you were talking about it, the biggest thing that came to mind, and there are plenty of times that when we're working with travelers, that the phone call will tell us red flags that we could not pick up via text message, right? But closing the deal should never be done via text message. And in the middle of the COVID rush that we had in the industry, like it was very common to be like, all right, I sent you that. Are you signing? Have you signed? Blah, blah, blah. And it's all done via text message. You try to get them on the phone. They're like, I'm too busy. Like, and you move on. And we've really had to, anybody who just did COVID recruiting, like they had to switch that conversation up. And I find it intriguing that we noticed over the past year, and the team is really good about recognizing it, is like recognizing the stall objections. We've talked about that. And you don't recognize those objections in text messaging, but you can pick up on those during the phone calls, right? I mean, there are so many times that it needs to be a phone call, coming down to like when we have payroll issues, and sometimes it's like we need to have a phone call, because if not, it's email, or text. And it's like, guys, we're not getting anywhere, even within the team. Like, we're a completely remote team. And there are plenty of times that we have to be like, you got to get into a meeting. Like, we need to have a face to face conversation and figure this out. We're all just kind of spinning in circles. So definitely that one is definitely, it's a lot easier, obviously, to do it with a team, right? Than it is with somebody you've not talked to. The other thing is getting through those uncomfortable conversations. Like
Yeah.
the more you do cold call, the easier it's going to be to have to do the other uncomfortable conversations about pay mess ups, or like why your traveler is not working, or having to give them uncomfortable information from facilities. And the more you do, it's like a band-aid. To me, I'm one of those things that I'm like, if you rip the band-aid off, eventually it's no longer sticky, right? So I'm just like, the more you do it, the less scary it becomes, the easier you can do it. It builds your confidence.
Yeah, I'm definitely a rip the band-aid off type of person, but I'm definitely going to think about the pain,
Yeah. Yeah.
ripping it off for a little bit before, like, sometimes, like, because sometimes you need to put yourself in the right mindset, right? And it's like a lot of times it's, you're going, if you're up against a full day of like cold calling or doing like, having difficult conversations, I will prep myself by doing things that make me kind of get in the mood for like get in the mood to be shut down, rejected, like, because I'm like, I have to be able to shake it off, right? And just be able to get back into kind of I do think we have our kind of recruiter personalities. And I think you need to turn it on a little bit sometimes. And like I may be like my mood may be like down here, but I'm like, I need to start at the top so I can work it down. And there are some days where I'm exhausted. Like I'm like, my social battery is completely drained. And I'm like, and I can be home and it's like, well, you're very quiet. I'm like, I don't want to talk to another single person until tomorrow. I want to. Um, and then there are days that you have those highs, that you had the really good conversations, you were able to really connect. There's some people sometimes that you don't get the offer score, you don't even make it to submission, but you had such great conversations and connections and you were able to build a relationship that there's just people that have good vibes, right? And like when you talk to them, they make you happy. So I'm always like, please get a good vibe person on the phone. But yeah.
So the next one that because I already went through three of mine, even though technically there were five. The next one that I have is creativity and in well, we'll go with creativity. So creativity to me is kind of a building of everything, right? Like you have to be tenacious. You have to feel confident. You have to work through those limiting beliefs so that you can figure out how instead of I can't, but how can I, right? And that's where the creativity comes from. Solving your own problems. Even if you can't take the action, having the solution, which we've talked about the 131. Is that right? 131.
Yep.
One
Yep.
problem, three solutions, the one you think is best. And just really training ourselves, and again it comes back to limiting beliefs, is really training ourselves to try to find alternatives to solutions to what we want and what we want to accomplish. And the more creative you can be about it, I feel like the better you are. Like I said, you can't always take action with the idea that you have, but at least you came up with something that didn't stop you. And then if you get a no, that means you have to tweak what you've come up with to get that yes, which is literally what you need to be doing as a recruiter no matter what. So it's like applying that salesperson recruiter piece to like every aspect of your life. Like if you have a goal, if you want to accomplish something, get creative, break through those limiting beliefs, feel confident, and you'll be able to get what you want accomplished. It may not look exactly like you originally planned, but you can still get to the end result. And that's the whole goal. So you've got to be creative. And sometimes that creativity comes down to the way you're choosing to speak with people, getting in contact with people, right? Like sometimes we come up with wild, crazy, harebrained ideas and we're like, let's do it. A, it's fun and it makes us laugh and it gives us a boost in fun. And then we get happy results out of it. Or sometimes we're like, oh, that did not work as well as we wanted it to. But yeah, you've got to be creative and you got to feel confident enough to try that creativity to see if you can get there. So that was definitely one of my five.
I really like that. I think recruiting is never boring, right? There's always something that's changing. There's always constant change, but I think sometimes our tactics don't work. The same thing that worked last week does not work this week, or the last month does not work this month. And so I think that's also the creative piece. It's like there's creativity in all of it. It's like, what's your marketing strategy? How are you networking? How are you talking to people? Your messaging needs to change. It's like, and sometimes, like you said, you have to just be able to have fun with it and be able to just tweak the little things. One word can sometimes make a huge difference in something as simple as messaging. And I think it's so important. And I think a lot of times when people think about creativity, they're like, well, I'm not the artsy type. It's like, you don't have to be that. It's like, you can be creative in all aspects of life. And it's like, for me, I'm not artsy.
I am not artsy.
Yeah, not even like a stick figure. Like it's challenging.
I can't even take pictures like you. I am 100% not artsy. Like I am far from artsy, but I am 100% creative in my thought process.
I do like I do like taking pictures, and I don't think we've ever talked about that. But I was recently with family somewhere else, and they're like, you just see things. They're like, we've walked by here 500 times and have never seen this before. Specifically, there was a mural in the middle of this town, and I was like, oh my gosh! And I'll send that to you in a little bit so you can see it. And they're like, we've been walking by here, and this has been here for years. We've never seen it, never noticed it. But I think that's something that you have to, and that's kind of my fourth one is the attention to detail. So I think you have to be creative, but you have to have that attention to detail. And it can be detail to conversations, attention to contracts, attention to what is it that your person wants. And you have to be that person that walks by something and notices the little things, because the little things in our industry make a huge difference, regardless of who you're having conversations. So it's like, a lot of times, like, you can't be that oblivious person that just lets like things fall through the cracks. Like, or you need a really good team that's there with you and has the attention to detail. And it doesn't have to be long-term attention to detail, because I think there's a difference. I think there's like, you don't like to have to pay attention to the detail long term, but in the short span of it, I feel like you have it and you're like, I want this and this. And I'm like, okay, I'll carry this through the rest of the process. Because I like to have that. I like to see it, and then I like to notice the little things that other people may not, because it's those things that are going to set you apart. I think as an organization, as a recruiter, as a person, you have to be the person that picks up on the little things. That's going to, there's so many recruiters. There's a lot of great recruiters, but you have to understand what sets you apart from other ones. And maybe that attention to detail and the care that only you can give that candidate is going to make it so that you're successful in your role.
Attention to detail would have never made my list. We both know that. But it's so funny you should say that because I am not an attention to detail kind of person, which is really funny because unless you know me, you don't realize that about me because I pick up on nuances so well in processes, procedures, like little things. Like I mean, it's little things that I pick up. And it's because even though I don't pay attention to the minor detail, I'm looking at things as a big picture and something about the picture is missing. That's how it works for me or in my head. So here we go. I'll sound really kooky while I'm talking about this. But to me, it's like the piece of puzzle is missing. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold up, everybody stop. Something is missing. Something's not right. Something is nagging. Something looks off. The eyes are a little not centered. Something is wrong with this image in my head. And that halts me enough. But then once it's solved, I will not continue those minor details. Like, that's it. I'm done. I did what I was supposed to. I got the picture fixed. Now it's somebody else's problem to keep it together. I did my part of it. So it's funny because for recruiting, to me, I find those little details and remember those little details because I think creatively, blah, 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 creatively about the big picture. And so I might do that, but I'm going to have to make note of that. Like I have to call it out in my head so that I remember that that was important. Like I'm so bad. If you ever want to be my friend, I'm really bad friend because I miss little details like that. Like if somebody asks me, I have no idea that I did not know. For my husband and I have been married 17 years. About 15 years into the marriage, I found out my husband doesn't like peanut butter. 15 years of marriage. And I had no idea my husband didn't like peanut butter. It wasn't a thing. It never came up. I didn't have to ask it. Like, why would I know that thing? But you would have known that about your husband. And I didn't know it until it no longer fit into the picture of something. And I was like, oh, well, that is crazy. Like, I don't like peanut butter either. Who would have thought? Like, I had no idea that neither of us really liked peanut butter. Like, because the little details. So if you're looking to be in a relationship with me and you're expecting me to remember little details and then like deliver on those details, I am really, really bad about it. I make a very like conscious effort to remember details about people so that they feel like I care because I do care. I just don't do minor pictures, right? And that can be really, really hard on me. It's a shortcoming of mine. So as a recruiter, like I have to make note that I want to remember this one thing about this person so that they can feel important. Like they feel like they're important to me, even though they are. I have to remember those little details. So like I have to overcome that because I know that that's how I am. So detail would have never made my list, even though it's so important to me because it doesn't fit pictures, right? And then I have to make sure I take notes on it.
I think it's really funny because I feel like we kind of balance each other out in that, like dates, I'm terrible. Like if it's not on a calendar, if it's not on my phone, like I can't. But I will pick up on the little things like in conversations, like, oh, this person likes this person likes that. And a lot of times when I'm talking to people, I will not remember their names, but I'll remember their stories or what they told me they liked, or it's like, oh, that person who hates having coffee. It's like, how can you hate coffee? Type of things. It's like, I'll remember those little things. And I think in terms of like us when we're working together, I think it's funny because you are very detailed in like the processes, but you're more of like this works together. And it's like, I'm like, but you bypassed like 20 different steps. And I'm like, how's that gonna work long term? Like, we'll figure it out. And so you've I'm very structured, and I feel like you've taught me to be a little less rigid and structured in certain aspects. So I don't think we've talked about, I have a background in HR. And so for me, it's very um recruiting is gray. HR, I feel like, is black and white for a lot of things. And it's like, I feel like I'm now just this like, whatever, we'll figure it out. And I think that's because of you, because it's like, I'm like, well, there's a process. And you're like, "No, there's not." I'm like, okay, cool. There's no process. I've had to learn to work like in this
Li-
weird
I am very
area of
loosey goosey. I'm just like, I'm such a hippie in that. I'm just like, where my end goal is accomplished and I made it happen. I'm so goal oriented that the process to the goal doesn't matter, which is why I don't have a whole lot of limiting beliefs. I mean, I do, but I spend a lot of time being like, how can I make that happen? Which is where the black, like that gray, loosey goosey area comes from. It's a good thing and a bad thing. It was definitely a bad thing when I was younger. A lot of people did not appreciate the gray area that I tried to go in. But yeah, I know you definitely that it is very complimentary to me because I especially when it comes to like transitioning what's in my head and what we're doing to the rest of the team, like that's where it's so important to have us together because I cannot always put into more step by step process of like how to get there. I can tell you how to get there and then people are like, "But what do I do?" And I'm like, "Just do what I said, which is just run." And they're like, "But which way?" And I'm like, "Just wherever you need to go," right? Like, and it's like that doesn't help. And you're like, "Okay, I want you to run in this direction. It will get you where she wants you to go." Like, and it's so funny because I try. It is just definitely a shortcoming of mine. I'll be like, I was very straightforward, and you're like, "No, you weren't," but keep
I love
trying.
how you're like, I'm being creative and like you're super creative, but I'm like, yeah, that's a federal government form and you cannot be creative with. And you're like, but I'm like, yep, no, hard stop, please. So yeah,
Sometimes I'm like, I should have been a lawyer. I should have been a lawyer. I would have been great.
yeah, there's still time.
I know I've thought about it several times. I'm like, I could make a killing being a lawyer.
I
Uh,
told my dad one time that I wanted to be a lawyer. He's like, you'd be broke. He's like, you want to help everybody. And
that
you
is a
do
problem I
it.
have too.
Like you want to help everybody and not charge them like pro bono for everybody.
Yeah, because I like a challenge. I'd be like, sure, give me that. We'll win. And I'll just do it for fun. I'll just do it to prove them wrong.
I think that's our problem. We're like,
Right?
we just like to argue for fun.
It's probably a good thing we're not lawyers. True, true.
Start our own firm, the pro bono group.
Oh, all right.
I think so. My last one. Did you want to do your last one or do you want me to?
You do your last one. I want to see if this one made it. If this does not make your list, girl, I don't even know what to say to you. So let's see. What is your last one?
My last one is you have to be good at managing your time.
It is not the one I thought of.
What did you think of?
Accountability, which is what you said
Okay.
last time. So maybe it's because you talked about it a million times, but it made my list. And you're like, time management. And I'm like, hmm. All right,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
let's be real. There's so many moving pieces to what we do. And if you're recruiting and it's probably recruiting with a smaller company, or you might be recruiting with a bigger company. I don't know, but uh there's a lot of directions that you're pulled in. And you have to be able to prioritize and you have to know what needs to come first. And you have to be able to say no. And I think part of time management is having the ability to say no to certain things. And I mean, I think that accountability ties into that. Like it's at the end of the day, we have a lot of people that we have to answer to. But if you're not accountable to yourself and you don't know how to freaking manage your time, you're going to have those days that you're like, I ran around like a crazy person and I got zero accomplished. So, and I think if all our brains kind of work the same way, which I think for the most part, our recruiter brains are constantly going off and we're the people that have the 1 million tabs open. It's like you have to be able to be like, I need 30 minutes of undivided attention to this task that is a priority and I need to get it done. And I think you and I talked about this week. It's like that tip where it's like get rid of do that hard thing first, do that thing that you don't want to do first, so that you have the rest of your day to kind of tie things in. And in theory, that's what you want to do, right? But we all know that you're like, I'm going to sit down and do the hardest crap that I need to do today. And then it's like, well, I need this and I need that. And this person wants this. And you're like, oh crap. Okay, cool. Like it's all hard. Everything is hard. Everything has to get done. And I have to figure out how to get it done.
Yeah, I we both know that I will use the tactic of I am shutting down all communications. I will like shut down email, I will shut off Teams, and I will literally be like, "All right, Nicole, if there's an emergency, you can text me. Otherwise, I have to have the 30 minutes to accomplish this task, and I need it to be undivided because too many people are asking too many things of me at once." And I just like tune everybody out. Sometimes I do that because I feel overwhelmed. And if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I know I'm going to procrastinate. So to save space for what I need to accomplish, I'm like, all right, cool, kill all, kill switch. Everything is turned off, like no music. I don't have a million tabs. I literally have just what I have to work on open. And I'm like, I will accomplish this in 30 minutes or whatever. I don't give myself a whole lot of time because I'm a firm believer in the, I don't know what the policy is, but it's like, whatever time you give, you're going to take that amount of time to fill it up. So if you give yourself 5 minutes, it'll take you 5 minutes. If you give yourself an hour, it'll take an hour. You give yourself 2 weeks, it'll take 2 weeks, right? Firm believer in that. So I usually be like, this is it. And I set an Alexa. Like I set an alarm on my Alexa so that when it goes off, I either have accomplished it or I am now required to transition and I will have to meet whatever consequences I have for not meeting whatever deadline I had set myself. And it's like, so make sure you're being realistic when you're doing it. I'm very firm on that. I'm not so good about saying no to projects, but I am good about being like, this is what I'm going to do. I am good in the sense of being like, that is a chase, like what chasing nothing there, but I am very bad about being like, oh, you don't have time to do it. Sure, throw that on me. Throw that on me. Throw that on Nicole and I. Nicole and I are notorious for volleying each
I
other
did
up
that
and
to me yesterday. I was like, what?
we volley each other up and then we're like, crap, why do we do that? Usually
I'm
though,
like,
we do it
wait, you
together. It's like, we'll
voluntold
take
to
care
do
of
this?
it.
I'm like, wait, did I just get voluntold to do something? I think it's so true. I think I like, I do like the projects that require some of the detail, and there's a lot of things sometimes that's like, I think that for me, I have to throw in some of the hard stuff in to not get bored. Like if things are going too smoothly, I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like, am I needed? Am I being productive? And then I'm like, all hell breaks loose, and I'm like, oh great, yep, it's cool. Like everything is under control. I do feel like I thrive in chaos, not like unorganized, don't meet deadlines chaos, but I I feel like I thrive in a faster up tempo. Like I have to have, if it's too relaxed, if nothing is happening, I feel like something is about to happen. And I'm like, so I feel like if things are moving and we're like grooving and it's like this is hard, but it's exciting, then I feel like everything's under control. It's when it's quiet and nothing is happening that I'm like, what are we racing for? So yeah.
I know, I know. I feel you. I will not use my mind juju on what that actually probably means for you. I'll keep that
Oh wait,
off
now I need
my.
to know. It's our
Let's
therapy
just
session.
say, yeah, right. Like that's some trauma stuff that you need to work on. But I think we all are bad about that. Like I know that I do. I mean, we both know that neither of us are very good at relaxing. If I'm relaxing, I'm like, what am I not doing? What did I forget to do? Which is honestly like a trauma response, but I'm not sure I want to break it. It's a little addicting. I don't know I mean, I'm not saying that this is the right advice. I'm just saying I'm addicted to that feeling and I should probably work on
We are full disclosure, we are not therapists. If you
at
need help,
all.
please seek help. We will probably give you really bad advice and put lots of stuff on your plate. So we're not the best people to go to.
Don't come ask us. You might want to just not do what we do. Then you might be better off.
If you're stressed out and have a lot of work, do not ask us how to fix
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we really need to talk about accountability as much as we know, like you have, I mean, we've talked about it with the timekeeping. Like you have to be accountable for your actions, show up. We're firm believers if you say you're going to do something, follow up with it, even if you don't have the answer just a simple like, hey, I checked on it, I'm still working on it. Or like we've had team members that we've had to get on to that are like, my headphone just popped out of my ear. We have team members who are like, "Oh, I will like look into that for you," right? To a traveler, and then they're like, "Well, we don't staff that traveler." And it's like, "Oh, but you still have to follow up." Now, you like if you're going to commit, you commit, right? So, just holding yourself accountable because the more dependable you become, the more dependent those people become on you, right? So the more you're showing up, the more you're delivering and being there, the more and more people are going to start relying. So you want your candidates to rely on you, even if it's just to like have information for them, because eventually they'll come back to you and be like, hey, you were so great about giving me information. Can I, will you, I referred, all those sorts of things. So yeah, it's really important. You know what we did not do before this? We did not come up with a tip of the day, but I do have one if you don't have one. Do you have a tip of the day for recruiters?
You can give your tip.
Okay. I just thought about it as we were talking about it. So, first of all, I want to say there is a book if you guys are looking about how to not procrastinate or like how to identify that you're procrastinating. There's a book that we had our team read called Eat That Frog. Now, I'm not a detailed person, so it's probably roughly around Eat That Frog. It might be Eat the Frog, it might be Eat Frogs, something along those lines, but I'll drop the information in the show notes. But it's called Eat That Frog, according to me currently in this moment. Um, but my tip of the day as a recruiter, if you are struggling to organize the chaos that's happening around you, you need to remind yourself what gets you to the money fastest and prioritize things that way. And for us, one of the things that we have to remind team members about and things like that is even though building profiles and submitting get you closest to the money, keeping your current travelers on and happy in retaining them is the fastest way to keep your money going, right? Like we have been telling them that they're very aware of that. They're doing really good about retention and so if you're like, well, fixing my payroll problem isn't top priority because it doesn't get me to the money faster. It does when that person is currently billing for you and the person that you're trying to submit is not. Right? Like you've got to really think about what helps me hold on to my money. How can I prioritize this to get to the money fastest? And I use that with my admin team. It's like, how do you help the company get to the money fastest? Like prioritize things that way. I know that we spent a lot of time doing that, and now we don't really have to talk to them about prioritizing that way. Like our team naturally does those kind of things. But I remember when we were first trying to help them because it's like mass chaos all the time. Everything's coming at you. It's all due right now. And it's like, well, what do I do first? And it's like, what gets me to the money fastest? What keeps the money flowing and where do I get it faster? And when you're in sales, like that has to be your number one goal. Do you have anything like else that you would add to that or like a different tip? Like, girl, I'd organize it this way. Isn't your detail and I'm not? Is there a different way to do it?
No, I definitely agree. I think that it's one of those things that when people stop coming back to you, it's for a reason, right? And I feel like if, like you said, like if you make sure that you're dependable and that you can give people good information, that you have the knowledge, that you're authentic and like the way that you have conversations, I think that draws people more to you. And I think you said payroll a couple times, and I think it talks about where our attention is right now. But I think nothing is going to get people to talk bad about you faster than you messing up their pay or not being able to deliver on it, right? And everyone deserves to get their money when they need to get it and because they've worked hard for it. So I think that is one of those things where it's like, well, it's just a payroll issue. It's not just a payroll issue. That's a huge issue, right? And I know I'm talking about payroll, but it could be anything because either lack of planning on your part doesn't mean that someone else's issues are not a big deal to them, right? And so it's like we might be dealing with a ton of issues and that in the grand scheme of things are much bigger issues than someone else's. But in that moment of time, that issue is big to that person. And part of us being good recruiters is being able to be like, okay, take a step back and I'm going to make you feel like you are first for me. And I think that's the thing when you talk about like rolling out the red carpet for someone, it's making them feel like they matter to you. And I'm very big on being like, I don't have an answer for you. I don't know how to do that, but I will figure it out and come back to you as soon as I do. Um, and that's the key, being able to come back to them as soon as you do, even if that's like, I need a little bit more time. And I think you need to reward the people that are loyal to you. You know, if you have travelers that have come back to you time after time, I don't think that you can, I think you need to show them that you appreciate that about them, because it goes, showing someone appreciation goes a long way. And so something as simple as you being like, hey, let me answer that question for you, or let me get somebody that can help you. I think, like you said, it is going to keep them coming back, which yeah, in turn is money, right? For you. So I definitely agree.
All right, then
And just so
that,
you know,
oh,
it's Eat That Frog, Brian Tracy.
see,
So good.
that's close.
21 great ways to stop procrastinating and get more done in less time.
It's like I think I listened to it on like 1.5. I think it took me like 1.5, 3 hours. It wasn't very, I got back from Disney and listened, like I drove from Disney home and listened to it. So it wasn't bad. It's real quick. A real quick book if you're looking for some type of way to get past not wanting to do the hard things for sure. So
Our way to not procrastinate is to listen to things at 1.5 and higher. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I did slow down. The book that we are currently reading, I did
me
slow
too.
it down because I
I
wanted to
did.
enjoy it a
I
little
did.
bit longer. So,
The book we're listening to now, I 100% slowed it down and I only listen to it if I'm not doing anything else. Like I want 100% immersion into the book. So we're both
yep.
reading Onyx
Us-
Storm. So
usually I'm at like 1.75 now. And I'm like, oh wait, this needs like 1.3.
yeah. Yeah, for real. I know. So you can say I'm avoiding because I'm in the very end of the book and like I am just like I started listening to another book just so that I don't have to finish it. I'm like, I don't want to finish it.
Are you
So
giving me time to catch up?
yeah, maybe you're gonna surpass me. You're gonna be like, I'm on 10 more books. You haven't listened to the last hour, and I'll be like, I can't do it. My heart is just not gonna work if I do. But all right, we'll go ahead and let you guys go, and we'll be back with you guys with another episode. Bye.